Chapter 1. The first night shift at the motel. That time forgot. You ever take a job because it sounds easy, only to realize too late it's anything but? That was us, the night we started working the graveyard shift at the Starlight Motel. It was supposed to be a simple gig: check in guests, keep the coffee pot warm, maybe mop the lobby if we got bored. The pay was decent, and for a group of broke college kids that was enough. But as the neon sign flickered outside, casting its sickly green glow through the fog, I felt a knot in my stomach. The Starlight wasn't just old. It was wrong. Like time had given up on it and left it to rot. We didn't know it yet, but that first night would change everything. What would you do if you walked into a place that felt like it was watching you? Let me back up. There were 5 of us, thrown together by a Craigslist ad and a desperate need for cash. I'm Jake, the guy who overthinks everything but still dives in head first. Sarah's the skeptic, always rolling her eyes at ghost stories. Mike's the joker, quick with a laugh to cut the tension. Emily's the quiet one, always noticing details the rest of us miss. And then there's Lucas, the anxious one, who checks the locks twice before he feels safe. We'd been friends since freshman year, scraping by on instant noodles and bad decisions. When Sarah found the ad for night shift workers at the Starlight, it seemed like a lifeline. A rundown motel on the edge of town, tucked between a dying strip mall and a stretch of empty highway. "Easy money," she said. Famous last words. The Starlight Motel looked like it hadn't been touched since the 70s. The sign out front buzzed like a trapped insect, half the letters dark. The lobby smelled of stale cigarettes and something sharper like vinegar left to fester. The carpet was a faded orange, sticky under our sneakers, and the walls were lined with wood paneling that creaked when the wind outside picked up. The front desk was a chipped slab of Formica, cluttered with a rotary phone, a guest book, and a bell that looked like it hadn't been rung in years. Behind the counter, a corkboard held keys for 30 rooms, each tagged with faded numbers. The air felt heavy, like it was pressing down on us, and the fluorescent lights flickered just enough to make you question your eyes. We showed up at 11 p.m., the start of the graveyard shift. The day manager, a guy named Carl with a smoker's cough and yellowed fingers, gave us a half-hearted tour. "Check in guests, log their names, don't touch the vending machine, it's broken," he muttered, barely looking at us. When Lucas asked about the last night crew, Carl's face tightened. "They quit. People don't stick around." He handed me the master key, a heavy brass thing that felt cold no matter how long I held it, and left without another word. The door slammed behind him, and the silence that followed was louder than it should have been. The first hour was uneventful. We took turns at the desk, flipping through the guest book. Most pages were blank, but a few had names scrawled in spidery handwriting, dated years back. "John Doe, room 13, 1987, Emily read aloud, her voice soft. "Weird. No checkout date." Mike laughed it off, saying it was probably just lazy bookkeeping, but Lucas looked uneasy, his fingers tapping the counter. Sarah, leaning back in a creaky chair, said we were overthinking it. "It's a dump, not a haunted house," she scoffed. But even she kept glancing at the dark hallway leading to the rooms. Around 1 a.m., the first strange thing happened. The rotary phone rang. Not a modern chime, but a jarring, metallic clatter that made us all jump. I picked it up, expecting a guest or maybe Carl checking in. Nothing. Just static, thick and crackling with a faint sound like someone breathing. I said hello a few times, but the line went dead. Mike, trying to lighten the mood, mimicked a ghost voice, but Emily was staring at the phone like it had bitten me. "That's not normal," she whispered. Lucas suggested we unplug it, but when we checked, the cord was already frayed, barely connected. Yet it had rung. The second incident came an hour later. Sarah was restocking the coffee filters when she froze, pointing at the corkboard. One of the keys, room 13, was missing. We hadn't touched it, and no guests had checked in. "Maybe Carl took it," Mike said, but his usual grin was gone. Lucas, pale as the flickering lights, insisted we check the rooms. I grabbed the master key, my hand sweating despite the chill, and we walked down the hallway. The air grew colder with every step, and the smell of mildew thickened, mixed with something metallic, like old blood. The doors were all locked, but when we reached room 13, the handle turned before I even used the key. Inside, the room was a time capsule. A sagging bed with a floral quilt, a rotary dial TV, and a mirror clouded with age. The air felt wrong, like it was holding its breath. Emily pointed to the nightstand, where a single key sat, Room 13's key, the one missing from the board. "That's impossible," Sarah said, her voice sharp. Lucas was already backing toward the door, muttering about quitting. I picked up the key, and it was ice cold, heavier than it should have been. When I looked up, the mirror reflected the room, but not us. Just the bed, the TV, and a shadow in the corner that hadn't been there a second ago. We bolted back to the lobby, hearts pounding. Mike tried to joke, but it fell flat. Emily flipped through the guest book again, her hands shaking. She found a new entry, dated tonight, in that same spidery handwriting. Guest room 13, no checkout. None of us had written it. Sarah, usually the calm one, snapped the book shut. "This place is messing with us," she said, but her voice cracked. Lucas wanted to leave, but the master key was still in my pocket, and something about it felt binding, like we couldn't just walk away. At 3 a.m., the lights flickered out completely. The neon sign outside buzzed louder, its green glow seeping through the windows. Then we heard it, a faint knocking coming from the hallway. Not rhythmic, but erratic, like someone testing every door. "Probably the wind," Mike said. But we all knew there was no wind tonight. Emily clutched the guest book like a shield, whispering, "What if it's not a guest?" Lucas was already at the front door, but it wouldn't budge. The lock jammed, despite the master key. The knocking grew louder, closer, until it stopped right outside the lobby. The silence was worse. We stood frozen, waiting for something to happen. Then the bell on the counter rang, a single, sharp ding. No one was near it. My mouth went dry and I could hear Lucas's ragged breathing. Sarah grabbed a flashlight from under the counter, its beam shaky as she aimed it down the hallway. Nothing, just darkness and that lingering metallic smell. But when the light hit the corkboard, every key was gone. Not fallen, not misplaced, gone. We didn't sleep that night. We huddled behind the counter, jumping at every creak, every flicker of the neon sign. By 6 a.m., when the day shift arrived, the keys were back on the board, like nothing had happened. Carl didn't ask questions, just told us to log any guests and go. But the guest book was blank again, no trace of the room 13 entry. We didn't talk much as we left, the morning fog swallowing the motel behind us. I still had the master key in my pocket, and it felt heavier than ever. That first night showed us the Starlight wasn't just a job. It was a trap, and we'd already stepped in. What would you do if you couldn't leave a place that didn't want you to go? Chapter 2. Room 13's guest left their luggage and vanished without a trace. Have you ever stumbled upon something that wasn't meant for your eyes? Something that pulls you deeper into a nightmare you didn't sign up for? That's what happened on our second night at the Starlight Motel. After that first shift filled with ringing phones and vanishing keys, we should have quit. But money talks and desperation shouts louder. We returned, telling ourselves it was just nerves and old wiring playing tricks. But room 13 had other ideas. It was waiting for us, like a spider in its web. What secrets would you uncover if a door opened itself, inviting you in? We dragged ourselves back to the motel at 11 p.m., the neon sign still buzzing like an angry hornet. The fog was thicker tonight, wrapping the building in a shroud that made the highway feel miles away. My pocket felt heavy with the master key. I hadn't returned it to Carl, and somehow it felt like it belonged there now. Sarah was quieter than usual. Her skepticism cracked after the guest book's vanishing entry. Mike tried cracking jokes about haunted motels being the new Airbnb, but his laugh was forced. Emily clutched a notebook, jotting down details from last night, her eyes darting everywhere. Lucas was the worst, jumping at shadows, insisting we stick together. "No splitting up," he said, like we were in a bad horror flick. But deep down, we all felt it. The Starlight wasn't done with us. The lobby hadn't changed. Same sticky carpet, same musty smell mixed with that underlying sharpness, like rusted metal. The corkboard held all the keys, including room 13's, gleaming innocently. Carl grumbled through the handover, his cough echoing in the empty space. "Any guests last night?" he asked, not really caring. I shook my head, avoiding his gaze. He left without mentioning the weird stuff, and the door's slam felt final, like sealing us in. We settled in, Emily at the desk, scanning the guest book, still blank, and the rest of us pacing or pretending to organize supplies. Midnight came and went without incident, lulling us into a false sense of normalcy. Sarah brewed coffee, the machine gurgling like a drowning animal, filling the air with a bitter aroma that couldn't mask the motel's decay. "See? Last night was just a fluke," she said, sipping from a chipped mug. Mike nodded, but his eyes kept flicking to the hallway. Lucas checked the front door lock for the third time, muttering about escape routes. I tried to focus on the logbook Carl had mentioned, a leather-bound thing under the counter, pages yellowed and curling. Flipping through, I saw entries from years ago. Guest in 5. Paid cash. Room 7. Complaints of noise. Nothing about no checkouts. But a chill ran down my spine anyway. Around 1:30 a.m., the first sign of trouble hit. A soft thud from the hallway, like something heavy dropping. We froze, listening. Another thud, closer. Emily whispered, "It's coming from room 13. Lucas shook his head furiously. "No way, we're not going there." But Sarah, ever the bold one, grabbed the flashlight. "We have to check. Could be a squatter or something." Mike and I exchanged glances. Better than ghosts, right? With the master key in hand, we crept down the hall, the carpet muffling our steps but not the creaks of the floorboards beneath. The air grew colder, the metallic tang stronger, making my nose wrinkle. Room 13's door was ajar, a sliver of darkness peeking out. I pushed it open, the hinges groaning like a sigh. The flashlight beam swept inside, the bed unmade, sheets rumpled as if someone had just left. On the floor, an old suitcase, leather cracked and dusty, lay open.
"What the hell?"
Mike muttered. Emily knelt beside it, her fingers hovering but not touching. Inside were clothes, faded shirts, a pair of slacks, and personal items, a tarnished watch, a yellowed photo of a family, and a wallet. Lucas hung back in the doorway, his face ashen. "We should call the cops," he said, voice trembling. Sarah picked up the wallet, flipping it open. No ID, but a receipt dated 1972 for the Starlight Motel, room 13. "This can't be real," she said, but her confidence was waning. I noticed the mirror again, its surface fogged, despite the chill. As Emily rifled gently through the suitcase, she pulled out a journal, pages filled with frantic scrawl. "They won't let me leave. The key doesn't work," whispers in the walls. We read in silence, the words sinking in like ice water. The last entry, checked in but never out. Mike tried to laugh. Someone's pranking us. But then the door slammed shut behind us, locking with a click. Panic set in. Lucas pounded on the door, yelling. I fumbled with the master key, but it wouldn't turn. The room felt smaller, the air thicker, pressing in. Emily shone the light around, revealing scratches on the walls, nail marks, deep and desperate. "People have been trapped here before," she whispered. Sarah banged on the window, but it was sealed, no latch. The suitcase seemed to mock us, its contents spilling like secrets. Then a whisper started, faint at first from the vents. "Stay, stay," building to a hiss that filled the room. We huddled in the center, backs together. Mike shouted over the noise, "This isn't happening!" But it was. The watch on the nightstand ticked backward, the photo in the wallet. The faces seemed to shift, eyes following us. Lucas was hyperventilating, Emily reciting the journal entries like a mantra. I tried the key again, twisting hard, and suddenly it gave. The door swung open, the whispers cutting off like a switch. We tumbled out into the hallway, gasping, the door closing softly behind us. Back in the lobby, we collapsed, hearts racing. The suitcase was gone when I glanced back. No, we hadn't brought it. Emily still held the journal, though, its pages now blank except for one line. "You found me." Sarah, shaken, admitted, "Maybe it's not a prank." Lucas wanted to bolt, but the front door was locked again, master key or not. Mike stared at the corkboard. Room 13's key was missing once more. As dawn approached, the motel released its grip. The door unlocked at 6 a.m., Carl arriving as if nothing happened. We didn't tell him about the luggage or the trap. What could we say? But the journal stayed with Emily, a tangible clue. That night taught us the Starlight collected more than dust. It hoarded souls, or echoes of them. And now we were part of it. What would you do if you found a vanished guest's belongings whispering your name? Chapter 3. The Night Manager's Logbook. Spoke of guests who never checked out, ever picked up a book that seemed to know more about you than you did about it. On our third night at the Starlight Motel, that's exactly what happened. We'd survived the ringing phones, the vanishing keys, the suitcase in room 13 that trapped us with whispers of the past. We told ourselves it was all explainable, faulty locks, old pranks, but deep down, the fear was rooting in. The motel was alive, feeding on our doubts, and that night, the night manager's logbook decided to spill its secrets. Secrets that named guests long gone, yet somehow still there. What would you do if a dusty old book started writing your story before you lived it? We showed up for the shift with heavier hearts, the neon sign's buzz now sounding like a warning. The fog clung to everything, making the motel look like a ghost ship adrift. I'd kept the master key, and now Emily had the journal from room 13 tucked in her bag, its blank pages a mocking reminder. Sarah tried to rally us, saying we needed proof before bailing on the job. Mike's jokes were thinner, more desperate. Lucas was a wreck, eyes red from lack of sleep, insisting we call in sick. But here we were, stepping into the lobby that smelled of decay and secrets, the air thick with that metallic bite we'd come to dread. Carl handed over without a word, his cough ragged, and vanished into the night. We tried to act normal, brewing coffee that tasted like ash, flipping channels on the ancient TV that only showed static. Emily spread the journal on the counter, comparing it to the guest book, both now eerily blank. "There has to be a pattern," she said softly, her voice cutting the silence. Lucas paced, checking doors and windows while Sarah scanned the corkboard, keys all present for once. I pulled out the logbook again, that leather-bound relic Carl mentioned for tracking shifts. Its pages were filled with mundane notes, vending machine jammed, guest in 8 complained of cold. But as I turned deeper, the entries grew stranger, dated back decades. Around midnight, the first oddity struck. The logbook, left open on the counter, flipped a page on its own. "No breeze, no one near it." Mike laughed nervously. "Drafty place." But Emily leaned in, reading aloud. 1975. Guest in room 13. No checkout. Luggage left behind. We stared. That matched the suitcase we'd found. Lucas whispered, "It's connected." Sarah rolled her eyes, but even she looked uneasy. We huddled around, turning pages carefully. More entries. 1982. Whispers reported in vents. Staff quit. 1990. Keys vanish. Reappear at dawn. It was like the book was chronicling our experiences, but from the past. The buildup started slow, the lobby's lights dimming subtly, casting long shadows that seemed to shift when we weren't looking. The smell intensified, like wet earth and copper, making my stomach turn. We decided to dig deeper into the logbook, Emily noting dates that aligned with the receipt from the suitcase. "Look," she said, pointing to a 1972 entry. "New hire trapped in room 13. Released at dawn. Won't return." Mike tried to joke. "Sounds like us," but his voice cracked. Lucas was at the front door again, rattling the handle. Locked, of course. Sarah suggested we confront Carl tomorrow, but the night was young, and the motel had plans. At 2 a.m., another page flipped, this time with a rustle like dry leaves. The new entry in faded ink. Current shift. 5 souls. "One will stay." We blinked. It wasn't there before. "This is bullshit," Sarah snapped, slamming the book shut. But when I reopened it, the words remained, and below, names. Our names. Jake, Sarah, Mike, Emily, Lucas. Listed as guests who never checked out. Panic rippled through us. Lucas bolted to the phone, dialing Carl, but only static answered, laced with faint laughter. Emily traced the ink. It smudged fresh, like it had just been written. The events escalated. Shadows in the hallway elongated, forming shapes that mimicked human forms, whispering names from the logbook. "John Doe, 1987, one hissed, echoing the guest book. Mike shone the flashlight, but the beam cut through nothing. The air grew frigid, our breaths visible, and the metallic smell turned to blood, sharp and nauseating. We heard footsteps overhead, though the motel was single-story. "There's no upstairs," Sarah said, voice trembling. Lucas clutched the master key, trying doors, but each led to empty rooms that felt occupied. Beds warm as if recently slept in. Emily found a hidden flap in the logbook, revealing older pages, drawings of the motel, with rooms that didn't exist on the blueprint Carl showed us. "There's a basement," she whispered. We hadn't noticed the door behind the counter, camouflaged in the paneling. With the master key, it creaked open, revealing stairs descending into darkness. The smell hit like a wave, rot and iron. "We shouldn't," Lucas begged, but curiosity, or the motel's pull, drove us down. The steps groaned underfoot, the air damp and heavy. At the bottom, a dim bulb flickered on by itself, illuminating shelves of forgotten items, suitcases, wallets, journals like ours. In the center, a pedestal with an open logbook, identical to upstairs but ancient. Pages filled with names, dates, no checkouts. As we approached, ink bled onto a blank page. They descend. "The motel claims it's due," Mike swore, backing away. Shadows converged, forming a figure, translucent in outdated clothes, mouth moving silently. "Stay." The climax hit like a storm. The figure lunged, cold hands grazing Lucas, who screamed as visions flooded us, flashes of past guests, trapped, fading into the walls. The logbook upstairs, we realized, was an echo. This was the source. Sarah grabbed a suitcase, swinging it at the shadow, dispersing it momentarily. Emily chanted names from the book, as if acknowledging them, and the air hummed. I slammed the master key into the pedestal like a lock, and it fit, turning with a grind. The shadows wailed, retreating, but not before whispering. "One stays." We fled upstairs, the basement door sealing behind us. The logbook on the counter was blank again, our names gone. "But Lucas?" He was pale, eyes distant, muttering about whispers. As dawn broke, Carl arrived, and the motel released us. Lucas insisted he was fine, but we saw the change, a shadow in his gaze. That logbook showed us the Starlight's hunger for permanence. We're bound now, deeper than before. What if a book foretold your end? Would you keep reading? Chapter 4. We heard Phantom knocking on doors that were already occupied. You know that feeling when a knock at the door sends a shiver down your spine, even if you're expecting company. Imagine that, but in a place where no one should be knocking, because the rooms are already full, or so they seem. On our fourth night at the Starlight Motel, the knocks started. Soft at first, like a polite visitor, then insistent, desperate. After the logbook's prophecies, the basement's shadows, and Lucas's haunted eyes, we thought we'd seen the worst. But the motel had more layers, more echoes. Those knocks weren't from the living. What would you do if the dead came calling, and the door was the only thing between you and them? We trudged back to the Starlight under a moonless sky. The neon signs glow, the only light piercing the fog. It felt like the motel was pulling us in now, the master key in my pocket, a constant reminder. Emily carried the journal and a flashlight, her notes growing frantic. Sarah's skepticism was fraying. She snapped at little things like the coffee machine's drip. Mike's humor had turned dark, jokes about checking out permanently. Lucas was the changed one, quieter, staring into space, whispering to himself. Since the basement, he'd been off, claiming he heard voices even outside the motel. "They're calling names," he'd say, but wouldn't elaborate. We stuck close, fearing he'd wander off. The lobby welcomed us with its familiar rot, sticky floors, flickering lights, the air heavy with mildew and that ever-present metallic tang, now laced with something sweeter, like decay under perfume. Carl's handover was curt. He eyed Lucas oddly but said nothing, coughing into his sleeve before leaving. We locked the door behind him, or tried. It stuck open a crack, as if inviting the night in. Emily pored over her notes, connecting dots. The suitcase from '72, the logbook's warnings, the basement artifacts. The motel traps echoes, she theorized softly. Guests who never left. Sarah scoffed but glanced at the hallway nervously. Mike tried the TV for distraction, but only static greeted him, shapes swirling in the snow. The first hour passed in tense quiet. Lucas sat by the counter, tracing patterns on the formica, muttering. We took inventory of keys, all there, mocking us. I flipped the guest book, blank as always, but a chill hit when I saw faint indentations, like erased names pressing through. We need a plan, Sarah said, her voice steady but eyes betraying fear. Research the motel's history tomorrow. Mike nodded, but Lucas shook his head. Too late. They're here. Before we could ask, it started. A faint knock from down the hall. It was 1 a.m., the sound echoing softly, like knuckles on wood. Room 5, Emily whispered, checking the corkboard. Key gone, meaning occupied. But no guests had checked in. We froze, listening. Another knock, patient. Lucas paled. Don't answer. Sarah grabbed the flashlight. Could be a real person. We crept down the hall, the carpet squelching faintly, air cooling. Room 5's door was closed, but the knock came again from inside. I used the master key, heart pounding. The room was empty, bed made, no luggage, but the air hummed with presence. The knock shifted, To room 7 across the hall. We followed, a macabre game. Room 7, empty, but a chair moved slightly as if someone had just stood. The smell here was stronger, rotting flowers and blood. Mike joked weakly, "Musical chairs with ghosts?" But Lucas clutched his ears. "They're knocking for us." The sounds multiplied, room 9, then 11, each occupied by absent keys, each room barren but charged. In room 11, a mirror fogged, handprints appearing, small, like a child's. Emily traced them, whispering. From the logbook, 1980s, family vanished. The knocks grew erratic, overlapping, a cacophony bouncing through the vents. We retreated to the lobby, but they followed, rapping on the counter, the walls. The air thickened, shadows lengthening under the fluorescence. Lucas broke down, sobbing. "They're the ones who never checked out. Knocking to be let in, or out." Sarah tried the phone, static with knocks echoing in the line. Mike barricaded the hall door with a chair, but it rattled anyway. Emily found an old map in the logbook, rooms marked with X's, labeled permanent residents. Around 3 a.m., the intensity peaked. Knocks thundered, doors shaking in frames. We heard voices behind them, muffled pleas. "Let me out! Help!" But opening revealed nothing, just cold gusts. In room 13, the epicenter, the suitcase reappeared, open, with new items. A child's toy, a woman's necklace, from the logbook's tales. Lucas screamed, "They're in me!" Shadows coalesced, figures at doors knocking with bony fists. One resembled the basement specter, eyes hollow. We fought back. Sarah chanted names from the logbook. Emily burned a page, smoke curling into faces. I jammed the master key into room 13's lock, twisting hard. A wail erupted, knocks ceasing as shadows dissipated. But Lucas collapsed, whispering, "They took part of me." Dawn came, knocks fading. Carl arrived, oblivious. Lucas was catatonic, eyes vacant. The motel had claimed more. Those knocks echoed souls trapped in limbo. "We're next if we don't escape." What if Knox called your name? Would you answer? Chapter 5. The static on every television channel whispered our deepest fears. Have you ever stared into TV static, that snowy chaos, and felt like something was staring back? On our 5th night at the Starlight Motel, the static came alive. After the knocks that echoed trapped souls, leaving Lucas even more withdrawn, we returned like moths to a flame. The motel had us in its grip, whispering promises of answers amid the terror. But that night, every TV tuned to our nightmares, voicing fears we never shared aloud. What would you do if your deepest secrets crackled from a screen, exposed for all to hear? We arrived under a heavy sky, thunder rumbling distant threats, the neon sign sputtering as if protesting the storm. The fog had lifted, but the air hung thick, charged. I clutched the master key, Emily her journal now filled with sketches of shadows and knocks. Sarah's resolve hardened. She brought a laptop for research, determined to unearth the motel's past. Mike's quips were sparse, his eyes shadowed. Lucas was a shell, pale, mumbling, avoiding touch. Since the knocks, he'd confided in whispers. They show me things. We didn't press. Fear bound us tighter than friendship. The lobby assaulted our senses, the carpet's stickiness underfoot, lights buzzing erratically, the smell now a cocktail of ozone and blood, like a storm over a slaughterhouse. Carl's cough was worse, phlegmy and deep as he handed over. Storm might knock out power, he warned, glancing at Lucas with pity or recognition. He left and we barricaded ourselves in, Sarah booting up her laptop. But no signal, the Wi-Fi dead. Emily reviewed notes. The echoes feed on fear. Maybe the TVs. We'd noticed the old sets in every room, relics with dials and antennas. We tried normalcy, Mike fiddling with the lobby TV, channels flipping to static. No cable in this dump, he muttered. Lucas sat apart, staring at the screen. Around midnight, the first rumble of thunder shook the building, lights dipping. Then the TV hissed on by itself, static dancing. Faint words emerged. Alone. Failure. Sarah snapped it off. Coincidence? But Lucas whispered, it's starting. The buildup crept in. Thunder grew, rain lashing windows like claws. We heard static from the hallway, TVs in rooms turning on. Emily checked room 3, the set blared static, whispering, betrayed, forgotten. It was Mike's voice, but distorted. He paled. That's not me. In room 6, Sarah's fears. Weak, unloved. She slammed the door, face ashen. The air crackled, smells shifting to personal horrors. For me, the scent of hospital antiseptic, my fear of loss. We gathered in the lobby, but the TV there reignited. Static swirling into images, fleeting glimpses of our lives. For Emily, a childhood accident she'd never mentioned, whispers accusing, "Your fault." She clutched her journal, tears welling. Mike's screen showed failed dreams, laughing voices. Joke. Worthless. He punched the set, cracking the glass, but the static persisted. Lucas laughed hollowly. They know us now. Storms intensified, power flickering, but TV stayed on, drawing phantom energy. We unplugged one, it hummed anyway. Static voices overlapped, a chorus of our terrors. Abandonment, inadequacy, death. Shadows from before danced in the snow, figures from the logbook knocking faintly. Sarah tried the laptop again, static on screen, whispering her name. "How?" she gasped. Around 3 a.m. it peaked. All TVs synced, static forming a face, composite of past guests, eyes hollow. It spoke our fears in unison. Jake's guilt over a lost friend, Sarah's hidden doubts, Mike's insecurities, Emily's regrets, Lucas's. Consumed. Lucas convulsed, static pouring from his mouth like smoke. Shadows pulled at him, TVs wailing. We fought. Emily recited logbook names, Sarah smashed a set, sparks flying. I thrust the master key into the lobby TV's slot, twisting. A surge erupted, screens exploding in glass and light. Fears silencing. Dawn broke, storm passing. Lucas breathed shallowly, more gone. The motel had feasted on our fears. Static revealed our souls. What's your deepest fear? Would you face it on screen? Chapter 6. A guest checked in. Using a name from a 50-year-old obituary. Ever had a stranger walk into your life who felt impossibly familiar, like a ghost from a story you'd heard but never believed? That's what hit us on our 6th night at the Starlight Motel. A guest who shouldn't exist, signing in with a name pulled straight from the grave. After the static TVs that aired our fears, leaving Lucas muttering about them watching, we were frayed at the edges. The motel was chipping away at us piece by piece. But that night, the line between past and present blurred, and the dead checked in. What would you do if the obituary you read came knocking, alive and smiling? We pulled up to the Starlight as rain pelted the windshield, turning the neon sign into a smeared haze. The fog was gone, but the storm brought its own dread, lightning flashing like strobes in a nightmare. My grip on the master key was white-knuckled. It felt warmer now, almost pulsing. Emily had added TV sketches to her journal, theories about the motel as a fear conduit. Sarah's laptop research hit dead ends. No records of the Starlight beyond basic listings. Mike cracked fewer jokes, his smile strained. Lucas was deteriorating, eyes sunken, skin clammy, whispering to unseen listeners. "They're coming back," he'd say. We watched him closely, fearing the motel would claim him fully. The lobby reeked of wet earth and copper, the carpet squishing under our shoes from leaks in the ceiling. Drips echoed like a ticking clock. Carl looked worse, his cough a wet rattle, eyes bloodshot. He eyed Lucas warily. "You okay, kid?" Lucas just stared. Carl shrugged, left the logbook and shuffled out into the rain. We dried off, Sarah booting her laptop, still no signal, storm interference. Emily scanned the guest book, blank but for faint scratches. Mike tried the TV, static but no whispers this time. Relief was short-lived. Around 11:30 p.m., the bell dinged. A real guest? We hadn't had one yet. A man stood there drenched, in a dated suit like from old photos, high collar, wide lapels. His face was gaunt, eyes deep-set but sharp. Room for the night? His voice was smooth with an accent hard to place. Sarah handled check-in, asking for ID. He slid over a faded license, Elias Hawthorne, born 1920. "That can't be right," she muttered. He smiled thinly, old family name. But Emily, glancing over, whispered later, "Check the date." We logged him in room 7, key handed over. He vanished down the hall, footsteps fading unnaturally fast. Unease settled. Lucas froze, staring after him. "I know him." We pressed, but he shook his head. Thunder boomed, lights flickering. Sarah searched her laptop, offline files. She'd downloaded obituaries earlier. "Elias Hawthorne," she read, voice dropping. "Died 1975, car crash. Lived nearby." The photo matched. Same gaunt face, same suit. Mike laughed shakily. Cosplayer? But the air chilled, smells shifting to exhaust and burnt rubber, like a wreck. The buildup intensified. Knocks started faintly but not phantom. From room 7, rhythmic. We ignored it first, but Lucas paced. He's calling. Static hummed from TVs, whispering Elias returned. Emily found logbook entries. 1975. Hawthorne checked in, no out. Accident reported? Rain hammered, leaks pooling blood red from rust. We heard laughter from the hall, muffled conversations. One voice Hawthorne's, others familiar from static fears. At 1 a.m., Hawthorne returned to the desk, asking for ice. Up close, his skin was waxy, eyes reflecting lightning oddly. Stormy night, he said. Reminds me of my last drive. Sarah probed. Where you from? He smiled. Hereabouts. Been away. Lucas bolted, muttering, not real. We followed Hawthorne's gaze. Shadows in corners shifted, forming crash scenes. Twisted metal, flickering and lightning. Events escalated. TVs tuned to newsreels of 1975 crashes. Hawthorne's name mentioned. He lingered, sharing stories. Checked in once, never left. Emily showed the obituary printout. He chuckled. That's me. But Motels got a way of keeping folks. Thunder crashed, power dipped. In darkness, his form glowed faintly, translucent. Knocks pounded from all occupied rooms, echoes cheering. Climax struck at 3 a.m. Hawthorne convulsed, shadows pouring from him. Past guests, swirling. The motel resurrects, he rasped. They lunged at Lucas, who screamed as visions hit. Hawthorne's crash tied to the motel. Sarah smashed the ice bucket, dispersing shadows. Emily burned the obituary, flames blue. I locked room 7 with the master key, ceiling screams. Hawthorne faded, whispering, thanks for checking me in. Dawn came, storm clearing. Lucas was feverish, more lost. The guest book showed Hawthorne's name, dated 1975. The dead returned, seeking release. If an obituary walked in, would you let them stay? Chapter 7. The master key unlocked rooms that shouldn't exist on any blueprint. Have you ever held a key that felt like it opened more than doors, like it unlocked secrets better left buried? On our 7th night at the Starlight Motel, the master key did just that. After the dead guest's visit, his fading form whispering of resurrections, we were shells of ourselves. Lucas was slipping away, his eyes glazing over with unseen visions. The motel was winning, drawing us into its web. But that night, the key revealed rooms hidden from maps, chambers where the past festered. What would you do if a door appeared where none should be, beckoning you inside? We arrived amid a stifling heat wave, the air shimmering off the asphalt, the neon sign hazy and distorted. No fog, no rain, just oppressive warmth that made sweat bead instantly. The master key in my pocket burned against my thigh, almost alive. Emily clutched her journal, now a tome of horrors. Sketches of Hawthorne, notes on fears. Sarah had printed blueprints from a late-night library run. Basic floor plans showing 30 rooms, lobby, basement. No anomalies, she'd said, but doubt lingered. Mike's humor was gone. He chain-smoked outside, eyes distant. Lucas was a ghost, silent, trailing behind, skin feverish. The room's call, he murmured once. We ignored it, fearing the truth. The lobby hit like a sauna, air thick, smells amplified, mildew, metal, now with a charnel sweetness, like rotting fruit in a graveyard. Lights hummed louder, casting heat-warped shadows. Carl was absent. A note said, sick, handle it. His cough echoed in memory. We settled uneasily, Sarah spreading blueprints on the counter. Emily compared to her maps. See? No extras. But Lucas pointed a shaky finger. There. A wall behind the desk, paneling seamless. Mike tapped it, hollow. Thunder from the previous storm lingered in our minds, but this was new. Midnight brought the first shift. The master key grew heavier, pulling my hand toward the wall. Try it, Lucas urged, voice raspy. Sarah hesitated, but curiosity won. I traced the paneling, a faint outline, like a door. The key fit into a hidden slot, turning with a grind. The wall swung open, revealing stairs ascending where blueprints showed solid structure. Impossible, Sarah breathed. Air rushed out, cool and foul, carrying whispers. We climbed, flashlights cutting darkness, steps creaking under invisible weight. The hidden level was a maze, corridors twisting illogically. Walls papered in faded patterns, floors warped wood. Smells varied. Dusty in one hall, bloody in another. Rooms numbered oddly. 31, 32, but skipped like 13A. Emily whispered, "Not on any blueprint." Lucas nodded knowingly. We opened 31, a chamber frozen in time, 1950s decor, bed made, but dust motes danced in beams. A diary on the table. Trapped above, no way down. Mike shivered. Echoes again, build-up mounted as we explored. Knocks echoed from walls, static hummed from non-existent TVs. In 32, luggage stacks, like room 13's, tags with names from logbook. "Permanent storage," Emily said. Lucas touched one, jerking back. Memories. Pain. Shadows flitted, temperatures dropping to bone chill. We found 13A, larger, altar-like symbols etched in floor, circles, runes. Air vibrated, metallic taste on tongues. Journal entries here spoke of the architect's secret, rooms for souls. Deeper, corridors looped impossibly, defying physics. Heat returned, sweat mixing with fear. Whispers named us. "Jake, stay." Sarah found a map, Motels' true blueprint, showing infinite rooms. "It's growing," she gasped. Mike opened another, mirrors reflecting alternate use. Terrified, trapped. Lucas laughed madly. "They're us, from other nights. At 3 a.m., climax unfolded. A central chamber, unnumbered. Walls pulsing like flesh, center a pit swirling shadows. Figures emerged. Hawthorne, logbook guests, knocking desperately. "The key awakens us," they chorused. Lucas stepped forward, drawn. "I belong." Shadows latched, pulling him. We fought. Emily chanted runes. Sarah swung flashlight, beams dispersing forms. I thrust the master key into the pit's lock-like void, turning. A shriek tore air, rooms shaking, collapsing illusions. We fled downstairs, wall ceiling. Lobby normal, but Lucas catatonic, whispering of endless rooms. The key unveiled the motel's heart, a labyrinth of lost. We're trapped in its design now. If a key opened forbidden doors, would you turn it? Chapter 8. We discovered the motel's foundation was built on something ancient, ever dug into the ground and unearthed something that should have stayed buried, something old and angry. On our 8th night at the Starlight Motel, that's what we did. The hidden rooms above had shown us the motel's twisted architecture, but now the foundation called, whispering of origins darker than we imagined. Lucas was barely with us, his body present but mind wandering those endless halls. The motel was closing in, its secrets piling up like dirt on a grave. But that night we uncovered what lay beneath, something ancient, hungry for more than echoes. What would you do if the earth under your feet held a curse older than time? We drove to the Starlight under a blood moon, its red light bathing the highway in an eerie glow. The heat wave had broken, leaving a crisp chill that seeped into bones. The master key in my pocket thrummed faintly like a heartbeat. Emily's journal bulged with additions, blueprints marked with hidden doors, theories on the motel as a vessel. Sarah clutched a shovel from her trunk. "For evidence," she'd said, but we knew better. Mike smoked relentlessly, coughing like Carl. Lucas shuffled along, eyes unfocused, murmuring runes from the altar room. "It's below," he repeated. We didn't argue. The pull was undeniable. The lobby felt smaller, walls pressing in, air thick with earth and rust, like fresh-dug soil mixed with blood. Lights flickered red-tinged, shadows writhing. "No, Carl, a note, out, dig if you must," chilling as if he knew. We gathered tools, flashlights, the journal, the master key. Sarah unrolled the blueprints again, basement marked, but notations hinted deeper. "Foundation anomalies," Emily read from old entries. Thunder rumbled distantly, though skies were clear. Lucas pointed to the basement door. There. We descended the stairs we'd found before, air cooling to icy, smell shifting to loam and decay. The basement was as remembered, shelves of artifacts, the pedestal now cracked from our last escape. But Lucas led us to a corner, floorboards loose. We pried them up, revealing dirt, not concrete. "Dig," he whispered. Sarah hesitated, but Mike grabbed the shovel, striking earth. Clods flew, revealing stones etched with symbols like the altar, spirals, eyes, runes. The air hummed, vibrations underfoot. As we dug, the hole widened, flashlights revealing layers. Modern trash, then older relics, bones, pottery shards, amulets. Emily examined one. Pre-Columbian? No, older. Symbols match ancient curses. The smell intensified, like opened tombs. Whispers rose from the dirt, in tongues unknown but felt in the gut. Hunger, entrapment. Lucas knelt, sifting soil, eyes glazing. It's a mound, built on sacred ground. Sarah recalled local lore, native sites, desecrated for developments. The buildup deepened with each shovelful. Shadows in the basement elongated, forming watchers. Knocks echoed from above, static hummed faintly. We hit something hard, a stone slab carved with a keyhole. The master key fit perfectly, turning with a groan. The slab shifted, revealing stairs descending further, into blackness. Air rushed up, fetid and ancient, carrying moans. We climbed down, walls transitioning from concrete to earthen, roots twisting like veins. The chamber below was vast. Cave-like walls inscribed with murals, figures sacrificing. Entities rising from ground, tentacled, eyed, formless. Center, an altar of bones, pulsing faintly red like the moon. Artifacts scattered, stone idols, rusted tools, echoing the upstairs trove. The foundation, Emily breathed. Motel built atop this. It feeds the curse. Lucas touched the altar, convulsing. Visions shared, ancient rituals, blood-binding spirits to land. Builders knew, used it for the motel, trapping souls to appease. Events accelerated. The chamber shook, dirt sifting from ceiling. Shadows manifested, ancient guardians, forms shifting. They whispered fears, but older. Tribal betrayals. Eternal hunger. TVs above crackled to life, static chanting runes. Hawthorne's voice joined. The root claims all. Lucas screamed, drawn to the altar. Skin etching with symbols. Climax erupted at 3 a.m. The entity rose, shadow mass, eyes gleaming, tentacles lashing. It latched onto Lucas, draining color. Sacrifice, it boomed in minds. We battled. Emily hurled idols, shattering illusions. Sarah swung shovel, cleaving shadows. Mike lit a flare from his pack, flames repelling. I jammed the master key into the altar's slot, twisting hard. Energy surged, entity wailing, retreating into earth. The chamber collapsed partially, forcing flight. Up top, dawn neared. Lucas breathed, but marked. Symbols faded, but scarred. The motel's foundation was a prison for something primordial. We awakened the ancient. Escape now or become part of it. If foundations hid horrors, would you dig? Chapter 9. The last shift required a blood sacrifice to balance the books. You ever feel like you're paying for something you didn't buy, with currency you can't afford? That's how our 9th night at the Starlight Motel unfolded, a demand for blood to settle an ancient debt. We'd unearthed the Foundation's curse, the entity below feeding on souls trapped in echoes. Lucas was its vessel now, fading before our eyes. We knew this shift might be our last, but quitting wasn't an option. The motel wouldn't let us. As the neon sign pulsed like a vein, we stepped in, ready or not. What would you sacrifice to escape a place that owns you? The weight of it all pressed down as we gathered outside the motel, the air still and heavy under a starless sky. It was our 9th night, each one stripping layers of our sanity. IJ clutched the master key, its warmth now a burn. Emily flipped through her journal, pages crammed with runes, blueprints, and sketches of the horrors we'd faced. The vanishing keys, the knocks, the static fears, the dead guest, the hidden rooms, the ancient chamber. It all leads here, she said softly, her voice steady but eyes haunted. Sarah, our rock, had packed salt, herbs, anything from online rituals. Her skepticism shattered, replaced by grim determination. Mike, the once joker, was silent, his cigarettes a crutch for shaking hands. And Lucas? Poor Lucas. He was a shadow, skin etched faintly with symbols, eyes glowing dimly. Balance the books, he muttered repeatedly, like a mantra from the entity. We'd pieced it together. The Starlight was built on that ancient site, a nexus where blood rites once bound spirits. The motel perpetuated it, collecting guests' essences to feed the thing below. Carl's absence last night, his worsening cough. Maybe he knew, maybe he was part of it. The logbook warned of sacrifices, the guest book tallied souls. After digging up the foundation, visions haunted us, blood on altars, ensuring the entity's slumber. But we'd awakened it fully, and now it hungered. Lucas was the conduit, his decline a sign. The motel demanded payment. Entering the lobby, the familiar assault hit. Sticky carpet sucking at shoes, flickering lights casting blood-red hues. air thick with earth, rust, and now a coppery promise of violence. The counter held the logbook open to a new page. Final tally. Blood to balance. Our names listed below, with debts. Fears fed, secrets spilled. Emily gasped. It's accounting for us. Sarah salted the perimeter, but salt sizzled, evaporating. Mike checked the basement door, locked, but vibrations hummed through. Lucas sat at the desk, tracing the words, smiling oddly. Soon, the first hours dragged in suffocating tension. Midnight passed with a distant howl, wind whipping outside despite the still sky. We barricaded doors, but locks clicked open on their own. Emily recited protective chants from her notes, voice trembling. Shadows gathered in corners, whispering tallies. One fear, two souls, blood due. The smell evolved, sweet rot to fresh blood, making stomachs churn. Lucas's symbols glowed brighter, his breaths ragged. It needs one, he said. We argued escape, but the front door sealed, windows fogged with runes. Around 1 a.m., the entity stirred. Floorboards creaked, basement rumbling like an awakening beast. Knocks resumed, but internal, from walls, demanding entry. Static TVs flickered on, showing ritual scenes, ancient figures slicing palms, blood dripping to earth. Balance, they chanted. Mike smashed one set, glass shattering, but cuts on his hand bled unnaturally, drops vanishing into floor cracks. It's taking it, he yelped. Sarah bandaged him, but the wound pulsed. Emily found guestbook entries multiplying, past sacrifices, names crossed in red ink. We delved deeper using the master key on hidden panels, revealing caches, daggers, bowls stained with age-old blood. Tools for the right, Emily whispered. Lucas guided us, entity's puppet. The altar below. We resisted, but quakes split the floor, exposing dirt. Roots snaked up, thorny, drawing blood from grazes. The air vibrated, smells overwhelming, blood, soil, incense from nowhere. Whispers personalized. My guilt amplified, Sarah's doubts, Mike's worthlessness, Emily's regrets, all currencies for the debt. By 2 a.m., manifestations intensified. Shadows coalesced into guardians, eyes gleaming, tentacles probing. They herded us to the basement, doors unlocking. Down we went, the chamber expanded, walls dripping ichor. The pit altar throbbed, red light pulsing. Artifacts levitated, runes igniting. Lucas knelt, offering his wrist. Me, he said calmly. We pulled him back, but thorns lashed, slicing palms, blood flowing to the pit, entity rumbling approval. Panic built as the room sealed, air thickening. Guardians chanted, TVs overhead broadcasting our lives as ledgers, debts mounting. Mike's cuts deepened, Sarah's salt circle failed, igniting blue flames. Emily hurled an amulet, shattering a guardian momentarily. I felt the key burn, entity demanding full payment, one life. The climax surged at 3 a.m. The entity partially emerged. Massive shadow form, tentacles wrapping Lucas, draining him. Sacrifice. It boomed telepathically, pain lancing our minds. Visions flooded. Motel history, sacrifices sustaining it. Carl's predecessors, guests, now us. Lucas screamed, body convulsing, symbols blazing. We fought desperately. Sarah stabbed a tentacle with a dagger, black ichor spraying. Mike lit flares, scorching shadows. Emily chanted counter runes, weakening the form. I realized the master key was the binder. Plunging it into Lucas's glowing chest like a lock, I twisted. Energy exploded, entity shrieking, tentacles retracting. Blood reversed flow, wounds healing partially. The pit sealed with a thunderous crack, guardians dissipating. We dragged Lucas up, chamber collapsing behind. Dawn's light filtered as doors unlocked. Lucas breathed shallowly, symbols dimmed but alive, barely. The logbook showed balances zeroed, but warnings. Temporary. That night, we paid in blood, but bought time. The entity slumbers but hungers anew. One more shift to end it or join it. What would you bleed for freedom? Chapter 10. Checking out meant becoming a permanent part of the Motels story. Have you ever tried to leave a place that wouldn't let you go, where every exit led back to the start? On our 10th and final night at the Starlight Motel, we aimed to check out for good. But the entity below, fed by centuries of trapped souls, had other plans. We'd paid in blood last shift, staving off the hunger temporarily, but Lucas's scars pulsed like warnings. The motel was our story now, woven into its cursed fabric. Escape meant unraveling it or becoming eternal threads. What would you do to break free, knowing freedom might cost everything? We'd survived 9 nights of escalating nightmares, vanishing keys that locked us in mysteries, phantom knocks from occupied voids, static whispers of our fears, a dead guest's return, hidden rooms defying blueprints, the ancient foundations awakening, and a bloody right to balance spectral books. Each revelation bound us tighter to the starlight. Lucas, once anxious but alive, was now a husk. Symbols on his skin faintly glowing, voice echoing the entity's will. "It owns us," he'd whisper. Emily's journal chronicled it all, a Bible of dread. Sarah, fierce as ever, planned our exit. Destroy the altar, seal the pit, flee at dawn. Mike nodded grimly, packing flares and tools. I, Jake, held the master key, the artifact that started it. Perhaps the end. We arrived at dusk, the neon sign blazing defiantly against the encroaching dark. No fog, no storm, just a silent, watching night. The air hummed with anticipation, the ground subtly vibrating. Carl waited inside, his cough silenced, eyes clear but resigned. "Last shift," he croaked. "Balance due." He handed the logbook, pages filled with our names, debts marked payable in full. Then he vanished down the hall, a shadow among shadows. We didn't follow. Time was short. The lobby pulsed with life, or unlife. Walls breathed subtly, carpet undulated like skin. Smells cycled, mildew to blood to ancient dust. We gathered supplies, salting thresholds, chanting from Emily's notes. Lucas sat central, a reluctant oracle. "The story ends with us," he said. Sarah outlined the plan. "Descend to the foundation chamber. Use the master key to lock the entity eternally, burn the artifacts." Mike tested a flare, its hiss echoing. I felt the key throb, syncing with my heartbeat. Midnight struck with a quake, floors tilting. Whispers surged from vents, names of past guests, including Hawthorne's, pleading or mocking. We ignored fortifying. But Lucas convulsed, symbols blazing, the entity probing. "It knows," he gasped. Shadows slithered, forming tentacles that probed barriers. Sarah swung a salted blade, dispersing them with sizzles. The guest book flipped pages wildly, entries bleeding ink. Permanent residents: Jake, Sarah, Mike, Emily, Lucas. We moved at 1 a.m., master key unlocking the basement anew. Descent felt eternal, stairs twisting, air thickening to soup, earthy, metallic, laced with decay. The chamber had changed, expanded, walls veined with glowing runes, pit wider, swirling with shadow mist. Artifacts floated, idols eyeing us. Lucas led, pulled magnetically. "Here," he pointed to the altar, now a throne of bones. Emily scattered herbs, but they ignited harmlessly. Mike lit flares, casting hellish light. Buildup intensified as we approached. Guardians materialized, spectral figures from logbook tales, knocks thundering in chests. Static visions projected on walls, our fears replayed, amplified. My lost friend accused, Sarah's doubts paralyzed momentarily. Tentacles erupted from the pit, lashing. We dodged. Sarah slicing with dagger, black ooze spraying burning skin. Lucas touched the altar, vision sharing. The motel's birth, built on the site to contain the entity, but corrupted, becoming its feeder. "Sacrifices sustain," he intoned. "Checkout requires one to stay." We pressed on, entity rumbling displeasure. Hidden rooms echoes joined, whispers from above seeping down. The master key heated, guiding my hand. But traps sprung, roots ensnaring ankles, drawing blood. Mike freed us with flares, scorching earth. Emily chanted counterspells, runes dimming. The air screamed, smells overwhelming, blood flooding nostrils, tastes on tongues. At 3 a.m., the climax engulfed us. The entity fully manifested, colossal shadow beast, tentacles coiling, eyes multiplying, maw gaping. It enveloped Lucas, merging, his form distorting. Become the story. It roared in our minds, pain-splintering thoughts. Guardians swarmed, knocking souls. We fought chaos. Sarah stabbed eyes, blinding temporarily. Mike hurled flares into the maw, explosions within. Emily burned her journal on the altar, pages fueling a purifying blaze. I lunged, master key aimed at the core, a pulsing heart in the pit. Tentacles wrapped me, visions assaulting, eternal entrapment, becoming echoes. Friends' screams fueled resolve. I thrust the key in, twisting with a final cry. Energy detonated, light versus shadow, chamber quaking. The entity wailed, form fracturing, sucking Guardians back. Lucas tore free, collapsing. Walls crumbled, pit ceiling with a thunderous slam. We fled upward, motel shaking, lobby cracking. Dawn broke as we burst out, neon signs shattering. The building groaned, settling but not collapsing. Carl stood outside, smiling sadly. Checked out, but stories linger. We drove away, Lucas recovering slowly, scars fading. The starlight stands but quieter. Whispers follow us. Did we escape or carry it? Ambiguity haunts. Was it real or our madness? The master key vanished, but sometimes I feel its weight.